Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. It is Canadian Thanksgiving weekend this weekend. So I'm doing sort of a more COVID-friendly, smaller gathering of family because we can't have a big gathering this year. And so I've got a roast beef going out on the pellet grill. We're doing a tomato aspic for the old cookbook show on Sunday, and a wild rice and broccoli dish that is an old family favorite that we can't do without. And this is an old family favorite that we can't do without on Thanksgiving, and that is date custard pie. So this is a single crust pie, and the bottom crust gets par-baked. If you go way back on our channel, you'll see that I've done this pie before, and my method has changed over the years. And I think that's important. As you grow as a cook and you try new things and you talk to different people and you see different methods, you really should change to get better, to grow. And so I didn't par-bake this crust for the longest time because my grandmother didn't par-bake the crust. She would just make it and it would all go in and it would bake at the same time. I have since changed. So I'm going to roll out the crust and we'll get ready to par-bake it. Okay, let's give it a shot. I think that's good. So just fold this back and lift it in. And then take a fork and dock it, which is just prick little fork holes in it. And that just allows steam to escape so it doesn't bubble up. It also helps it a little bit in the shrinkage department, but that's really down to pie weights. So, and do along the edges too, along the sides. And don't be afraid to over dock. It's better to do more holes than not enough. They will mostly close during the first par baking process, and none of your filling is going to leak out through the holes. Now, I take a piece of parchment paper, but instead of just pushing it in like that, I crumple it up and then unfold it and crumple it up again. And I might crumple it 2 or 3 times. This time I'll only do it twice. I won't make you watch me do it over and over and over again. What this does is it breaks down the paper a little bit. Makes it a little more pliable. Makes it so that when you put the pie weights in, whether you're using actual pie weights or dried beans, it fills the cavity better and really gets into all of the nooks and crannies and corners. It gives you a better fit, really, is what it comes down to. Now, I have both pie weights and beans. I usually go for beans first. In fact, I pretty much always use beans. Some people use sugar. Some people will use sugar with foil. Other people use these beans, and I have them. I don't use them that often, but I'm running out. I'm a little short on beans today, so I'm going to put some pie weights on top. And it's okay if you mix these two together. It's not a problem. You really want to make sure that the entire shell is filled all the way to the top with weights. It keeps the shell from shrinking. Now, the oven is preheated to 475 degrees Fahrenheit, and I have my pizza stone on the middle rack. And I'm going to sit the pie crust directly on the pizza stone, just to transfer as much heat as quickly as possible to set that bottom crust. That'll go in there for 12 to 15 minutes, then I'll take the pie weights out and stick it back in for another 2 minutes. While that's happening, we'll make the custard. For the custard, we start out with 3 cups of milk, and this is just homogenized milk, 3.25 milk fat. You could use half and half. You could bump it up with a little bit more cream. I find this works pretty well. So the milk I'm going to put into this pot, it's sort of on a medium-low heat. We just want to bring it up to below a simmer. You don't want it to boil. You don't want it to get that hot. You just want to have it warm enough to start that custard cooking when you mix it with the eggs. So next I've got 5 eggs, and I'm just going to break those into this container. Now, 4 of the eggs go into this mixing jug. One of the eggs I'm going to put in this little bowl, and we're going to use it as an egg wash inside the par-baked shell when it comes out of the oven. So I'm just going to set that aside for a moment. And to these eggs, I'm going to add sugar, salt, some vanilla, and I'm going to grate in a little bit of nutmeg. And then we'll just whisk this up. Okay, so the shell is par-baked, which is different than blind baking, even though I often use the terms interchangeably. Blind baking really is for pies where you're just putting a filling in and it's not going back into the oven, where it just goes into the fridge, like a chiffon pie or something like that. Whereas par-baking is the term that you're supposed to use when the pie will go back into the oven for baking. A tiny little point that I often just use the words interchangeably, and I know that's wrong, but I don't know. I still do it for some reason. So I just whipped up that egg a little bit, and we're going to egg wash the inside of this pie shell. This is a tip that I got from a food stylist recipe developer here in Toronto, and she told me that this keeps the inside of the pie shell from absorbing any of the custard when you first put it in. And it's one of those things that seems to work, and it certainly doesn't hurt. So when I've got a pie filling that uses egg, I will do this. And just get it everywhere. You don't need to put it back into the oven to bake, since this came right out of the oven and the inside of this crust is unbelievably hot. Okay, so this egg that's left over, I'm going to put it into the egg with the filling and just mix that in. And our milk looks like it's at about the right temperature. It's just steaming a little bit. So I'm going to temper the eggs with the milk. Drizzle it in a little slowly at first because you don't want to scramble the eggs. And then you can just pour all the rest in. So in this bowl, I have chopped dates, and I just sprinkle those into the bottom of the pie shell. Distribute them fairly evenly. And then I pour the custard over top. Okay, so the real trick is getting it into the oven without spilling it everywhere. And if you were smart, you would probably stick this on a baking tray in your oven with the shelf out, pour the filling in, and then gently push it back in. Sometimes with the camera going and everything happening, I'm not that bright. So the oven was really hot, 475 when I baked the shell. I turned it down to 325 when I took the shell out after par baking, and I'm going to stick this in to this hotter oven without spilling, and I'm going to let that go at the lower temperature. The oven will cool down slowly, but that slow cool down period down to 325 from 475 will help set the custard to begin with and then slowly cook it through. Okay.
Have forks.
So this is not Julie's favorite pie.
My friends. No.
Oh, it turned out pretty well.
It does look lovely.
I'm pretty pleased with that.
But it is my family's favorite pie.
And I said earlier, the pie that's sitting in front of me is my favorite. I really am okay with unless it's coconut or banana. But date custard, I absolutely love it.
That's a great custard, Glen. That's like a nice, firm custard with lots of good flavor. And I luckily got one without a date. Yay!
So there's the thing. So the custard itself isn't sweet.
No.
The dates are really sweet. And so when you get a date, you get that hit of sweetness and that flavor from the date.
And I find dates just way too sweet. They're just overwhelming for me.
But to me, I really like it when I get a date. And the bottom crust is so nice and crispy, isn't it?
It's a job well done.
Yeah.
And my family would be thrilled. And your family would be thrilled. But it's just you and I. So we get it all.
Uncle Jim would go to town on that. Luckily, he's not here this year. I can eat it all myself.
Yes, you can.
So, date custard pie, and you could do raisins in this custard.
It is a
You
custard
could,
pie.
you could do any dried fruit in the bottom of this custard pie.
Yes,
you could
you
do
can.
dried apples. You could do all of those things.
You could probably do a mixed fruit. We've never done that.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting.
Yeah, so it is just a basic custard pie, and play with the bottom as you like.
Yeah.
Really make it your own.
If you like date squares
Yeah.
at all, you're gonna love this pie.
It's just and it's just toned down a little bit. It's not nearly as sweet. It's not cloying. It is kind of a refreshing end of the meal pie that you could eat probably 5 or 6 slices of.
I feel like you could wax poetically for another
I
5
could- I-
minutes.
I could go on and on about-
why this is a good pie.
I could go on and on about this pie, but we need to move on to the tomato aspic. So if you
There's a whole
Yeah.
We'll get there.
So if you've missed it, this is our Canadian Thanksgiving week feast. We did a strip loin roast. We smoked it and then reverse seared it. We did a broccoli and cheese with wild rice thing. So check out those videos as well and come back for the tomato aspic. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.